I'm Matthew Kerbis, the subscription attorney, and this is Law Subscribed, your dedicated source for all things subscriptions and the law. Thank you to my sponsors. See links to them in the show notes. Everything discussed is only for educational and entertainment purposes. Enjoy the show. So those on LinkedIn, you get to see the beginning of this conversation. And so, sorry to interrupt with that, Claudia.
That's all right. That's all right.
We'll let you get to it. So the judge is the master saboteur. Sorry about that.
Yeah, no worries. The judge is the master saboteur. And so it's kind of like this trickle-down thing, right? So the judge has three ways it judges us. And each person listening is going to have a sense of, I identify with this, I identify more with this. So one aspect is maybe you're hearing it and you think, when you think of the judge, you're like, oh my God, that judge is on me 24/7. It's telling me all the things that are wrong with me. I do this brief, I do this conversation with a client, I beat myself up for all the things I said wrong, didn't say, should have said, what if, okay, so that's one way the judge shows up. The other way the judge shows up, it can be maybe it's not at work, maybe it's at home, and you judge your spouse, your children, your parents. They're the problem. I am perfect. They have all these issues, and they mess up my relationship. That's another way the judge shows up. And the other way is it judges our circumstances. If I had a different employer, if I had different work, if I lived in a different town, if it was a different time, it's our external circumstances that cause our unhappiness. So that's where the judge is, one of three ways. So an aspect of the work I do is based on the work of Shirzad Sharmain, and he wrote a book called Positive Intelligence. And what he discovered in research is that there isn't anybody who isn't judging themselves in some aspect of their life. And so the power of this is helping people to identify, put a name on it. It helps it to start to minimize, because it's like having the boogeyman who is constantly out there. When you pull it off, you realize there's nothing there, but you give it power by not looking at it. And that's what coaching is. It's starting to undermine its power by looking at it, addressing it. So we've identified the master saboteur. The master way we sabotage ourselves is the judge. Secondly, the accomplice saboteurs, if you will, it works to, fortify the judge. First one is the hyperachiever, as we identified. Hyperachiever is basing all of his happiness based on external success. And I can't be happy unless I get this, 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 this. And the problem is usually once you hit the bar, it moves out. Well, now I got this. I won't be happy till this, this, this happens. Or I got this. Oh, well, that's not good enough. I want this, this, this. So it's constantly chasing that carrot, and there's never a feeling of happiness, peace, well-being.
Another, if I may just jump in, I think that made me think of another common way that we've heard of this maybe is the hedonistic treadmill, right? So like in particular, lawyers, as you raise in the ranks, if you're in a private law firm setting, right, you want to be able to also drive the fancy cars and have the fancy house and have all the things so you could show to people, look at me, I've achieved success, instead of also like learning to live within your means. So like in a way, like there's like financial balance that's lacking if we're hyperachievers on this hedonistic treadmill, right?
Indeed. Yeah, it's actually accurate. It's so accurate because that's what's happening. And, I have nothing, it's not to condemn financial success or being rewarded for work well done.
Mm-hmm.
The difference is that there is no choice. The hyperachiever is running you. It's a program. And that's the work that I do with my clients, is helping them identify, do you choose this? Because usually it's not a choice. It's something that has been taken on. It's usually inherited or it's societally based, but it's not an internal, yes, this is genuinely who I am. And that's the difference.
I think that's so important to point out, because it's also the legal profession puts that on a lot of young attorneys. And young attorney could also just mean somebody where they've maybe had another profession, but they pivoted to law, right? Where like this is these are the values that are being conveyed are important. And even like when I'll be on, I guest on a lot of legal podcasts. And when I say how I'm not trying to just grow my law firm into the next biggest giant law firm and I'm trying to generate as much revenue as possible, it's like they're confused, like they don't understand. And they're either themselves lawyers in the profession or coaches or people trying to help lawyers in the legal profession. And they just can't, like, because it's so well ingrained and steeped
Yeah.
for the legal professionals that you must strive and achieve and more and more and more and more without actually thinking about the consequences, the opportunity costs, what you're giving up, what that's doing to you internally as well as externally.
So true and so accurately said. And it's like it's baked into the cake. It's inherent in the industry. And then I like to believe that the gift of coaching is it helps people to step back and ask themselves, is what I'm doing what I truly believe? And is it actually giving me what I want? Because what I see is that there isn't happiness, there isn't peace, there isn't well being, there's a lot of sickness, there's a lot of emotional turmoil, relationships feel kind of strained, they're exhausted. So, talk about a cost. And, there's always that line like at the end of people's lives, they're not saying, God, I wish I worked more. I wish I, made more money. That isn't the wish. I wish I had better relationships. I wish I was more connected. I wish I didn't, sacrifice my health, my well-being, my peace of mind. I wish I didn't, I wish I prioritized that. And I'm of the belief, and what I believe coaching can offer people is that you can have a good life, working life, but also take care of yourself. It's not yes or. So that's really what I'm passionate about, really, having people realize. So in addition to the hyperachiever is the stickler, right? The controller. Things have to be their way and things have to go exactly the way that they think they should go. And one of the challenges of people who, have that running them is they struggle to be vulnerable because it feels like an admission that there's something wrong with them.
To tie it to the legal profession, those of us who've ever been associates at a law firm and had to work for a lawyer. I can't speak to the public sector, but I'm sure this is also true in the public sector. Although more so for private practice because it's all based around the billable hour is like that boss who's a lawyer, like they are so in this role. And part of it is the client will only pay for so many billable hours and doing the work and being efficient, but also making sure you're hitting your quota of billable hours and what you can't do and do things this way, going through deposition questions. Did you ask this question? Did you ask that question? Like so many lawyers who are employers fall into this trap and in this role. And then that's what we see. So when we get into that role, we may end up having this too. And like at first I was like, oh, all these personas of saboteurs, they don't all apply to lawyers. And then as of course we go through every single one of them, I could think of examples of lawyers where they all apply. So if you're listening to this and you're a partner or you're a boss and you other lawyers work as part of your team, this is, you may fall into this category.
Yeah. Here's the thing is that it robs people of being people.
Mm-hmm.
And then it goes into human relationships because you can't admit something, there's a mistake. You can't admit how you're feeling about something. There's no willingness to be vulnerable in a situation. Others feel like they can't relax around you. So there's constantly a feeling of anxiety and stress that you're feeling when you need to be this person and that others feel around you.
Right.
So it's a really hard role to hold on to, but the reason why people do it is because they feel in control, right? Right. And then the tighter you're in control, the less you don't want to give that up. And it really is a practice to discover what is the cost to me in constantly living like that.
Let me tell you about the brand new sponsor for Law Subscribed, Paxton. I've been using Paxton as my legal AI tool for over 2 years. I continue to evaluate and demo other legal AI tools in the market and still decide to stick with Paxton because of its reliability, its accuracy, its ease of use, affordability, and they do not lock you into a long-term contract. Now, as a transactional and fractional general counsel attorney, I'm using Paxton for all of my substantive and non-substantive legal work, whether that's legal research, analysis, drafting, or enhancing existing legal work product. In the time it used to take me to draft and analyze legal documents, now, after a little bit of back and forth with Paxton, I have something ready to go in minutes that used to take hours or even days. While I'm no longer a litigator, I could see how valuable Paxton would be when researching a new issue, preparing for a deposition, drafting a motion, or going to trial. So if your firm would benefit from using Paxton as your legal AI tool, then make sure to use the link in the description when signing up to let Paxton know I sent you. That's all about our new sponsor. Now back to the show. Something else that this conversation is making me think of is, and not a brain scientist here, but like building neural pathways, right? Mm-hmm. And like the way, like the more you do something, the more you think a certain way, you're building those neural pathways, and they become like deeper and deeper and well-entrenched pathways. And it's hard to break out of this. So the longer you're in these ways of thinking, the harder it is to break out. Doesn't mean you can't, but putting some words to this helps you at least see the trenches for what they are and start to think about getting outside of them and building new neural pathways. You could do this mentally, like working with you, Claudia. You could do this physically, like going up the stairs or down the stairs backwards, brushing your teeth with the opposite hand, right? Like there are different ways that you could start to create more neuroplasticity and break free from these entrenched neural pathways. And I don't know if, like, again, sort of off the cuff here, but have you found that, and I wonder if maybe you've got to try this with some of the professionals who you coach, is like try to do some physical changes to physical neural pathways and see if that opens up the mental flexibility to break free from some of these saboteur personas. What do you think about that?
I love, I cannot tell you how much I love that, because you are spot on, because indeed it is neural pathways. And when I work with my clients, so in addition to coaching them verbally, helping them identify the pathways, we're also working together to change the neural pathways by doing 2-minute, we call them PQ, positive intelligence reps, kind of like going to a gym, kind of like what you said, is helping them to stop the internal process that's going on and intercede it so that you can shift it into a different way. And what we use is a physical practice of coming into your senses. Because when you are doing exactly what you said, when you have created these neural pathways, the grooves have been set, the train is running, you need to stop the train and then pivot. Not easy, which is why exactly what you said, you have to keep shifting so that you can be able to create a new pathway. And we do it by doing daily repetitions 2 or 3 times a day to start shifting these saboteur patterns and focusing on one pattern at a time. And by doing that, you can start to create a new experience.
Okay, so then first steps. So if people are interested, they reach out to you, they schedule an assessment, they get assessed so that they know the personas we've talked about of saboteurs, and there's more that we can't cover all of them in today's call, but there's more of them, and there's different levels of them, and you figure that out. And then they work with you doing these PQ reps over a set schedule to try to get in the habits and behaviors that will then change them and help them break free from whatever sort of saboteur types that they are. And the PQ reps, are they different? Like you're able to guide them based on like which sort of are the main categories that they fall into? Like what is that more like?
Yeah, so there's about 5 different categories, but they each kind of broad category relies on our senses. So being able to, when we're in sabotage mind, our mind is it's off track, but it's on the track that's been created. So to create a new track, we want to get it into a more empowered track, or that wiser aspect of ourselves who intuitively knows what's best for us, but through years of programming and practicing, we've lost it. So each aspect brings us more into our senses. So, for example, you would start to, your mind is going somewhere now. Maybe somebody's listening and they're half doing something else and they're listening to something else. And so in the PQ practice, you take 2 minutes and you just you start to focus on your sense of touch. And you start to focus on bringing your sense of touch, 2 fingers, and you notice what you notice when you bring 2 fingertips together. And then you notice what that feels like. And then you notice what it feels like to bring all the fingertips against all the fingertips of the other hand. And then you notice, oh, my mind's shifting a little bit. And then you notice, oh, well, what if I focus on, then you're guided to focus on your breathing for a little while. And you notice what happens when you focus on your inhalation. And then you notice what happens when you focus on your exhalation. And then you notice the rhythm. And then you notice, oh, my mind is wandering. And you're like, okay, now I'm going to go back to my sense of breathing. Okay, okay. And now I'm going to notice what am I listening to? What sounds am I hearing? What's the most distant sound I can hear? What's a sound that's closer to me? What's a sound that's the closest to me? So you're starting to refocus your brain so that your brain can get away from these runaway patterns. Because, like I said before, you're not actively choosing the hyperachiever. You're choosing it because it's been a program. You didn't say, you know what, that isn't my highest good to do that. It creates a kind of life where I feel peace, I feel connected, I get to do my work, I feel a value. No, it's a survival aspect. And that's what these saboteur patterns are. They are survival aspects. And when you're surviving, doing your best you can to survive, you are going to attach onto the thing that is your natural strength. So you're going to latch onto, I'm a good achiever, I'm going to latch onto that. And then it gets, as we say about sabotage patterns, they overuse and abuse our strengths. Underneath being an achiever, there's nothing wrong with that. The hyperachiever is overusing and abusing the achiever. Does that make sense?
I think it makes a lot of sense. And again, it's made me think of some other disparate knowledge that
Yes,
I've consumed over the
please.
years. So I've referred to that sometimes in certain contexts as being in your default setting.
Yes.
And the same thing is true with our technology, right? Like you just get something, it's a default setting, and you just go with it and you never think about it. There was even like a talk, I'm sure there were books and articles and stuff by Adam Grant,
Yeah.
famed organizational psychologist, about what web browser you use will say how successful you're going to be in the workplace. And it's like it's like Chrome or Firefox. And why? It's because you don't accept the default browser and you actively search for a new browser. It's not even about the technology, it's about what's inside your mind. And are you the type of person who you just go with the default setting, or you try to break free from that default setting and actually engage in some extra layers of thinking, some metacognition? And I can't remember exactly what the outcome of that TED Talk was, but I don't remember him actually I don't remember him giving here's how you actually go do that. Here's how you could go do it. And so what you're talking about is actually getting out, turning off the default setting and trying to take control over your mind and actively engage in things that help you think about thinking and letting go of these negative thought patterns, essentially.
That's right. That's absolutely accurate and spot on, really spot on. And what you said really resonates with me is it is breaking free, because it's easy to go and follow the masses. It's easy to do what everybody does. But that is not the path to happiness. It's not the path to well-being. It's not the path to creating the kind of life that you look at and say, I don't need to escape from this. And, usually people are going on a vacation because they're exhausted and they need to escape. And then they come back and they're like, within a week, they don't remember being on vacation because they're back to being exhausted and worn out.
I generally, what I'm about to say, I did not plan this, audience, longtime listeners, for what I'm about to say. But I'm so glad that we ended up here because, longtime listeners know, what is the Law Subscribe podcast all about? It's about breaking free from the default of the billable hour as the way to generate revenue in in legal services for private practice. And what has that led to? Right? It's led to burnout, recovering lawyer being a term, a huge access to justice problem, most lawyers not being able to afford their own legal services, right? So, like, this is a wake up call. Like, it's time to break free from the billable hour and the default setting of that billable hour when you graduate from law school, because they don't teach you this stuff in law school. Like, Claudia, I wish you had some version of this that you could teach to law students when they're in law school, like to help them get in the mindset of just
Yeah.
not doing things in the default setting to break free from that. And then how can they extrapolate that to the practice of law, right? So I see so much overlap here, and I'm sure we could keep going. So I'll let you wrap it up with any sort of final thoughts that you have, and then we'll let folks know where they can reach out, how they can get in touch.
Okay. I mean, I can't thank you enough for this conversation. It, warms my heart because it is my passion to give clients tools and strategies to say yes to themselves, to break free from ways of being, ways of thinking that are societal based, that are not active choices that they've made. My absolute delight and passion is seeing my clients love their life and being excited and feeling like, oh my God, like I got more hours back in my day. I'm having more quality time with people I care about. And I'm not wasting my time doing stuff that I don't care about. So I cannot tell you how much I appreciate this conversation and how you have been able to connect it to your community and really be able to offer this as a resource. So thank you.
Yeah, and thanks for coming on, and
Welcome.
we'll let people know. So in the chat here on LinkedIn and in the show notes, if you're seeing or hearing this as the podcast, I'm putting a link to Claudia's Calendly to schedule a call with her, and her website as well, and that's Claudia Braun, CLAUDIA-BRAUN.com. And so check out her website, check out the scheduling link if you're interested. And then I just clarification question, like these are virtual, like you don't have to be local to where you are. You could help people anywhere. Is that right?
That's correct. We do all sessions just like this. We do it over Zoom. So it doesn't matter where you live. I would love to have a conversation with you. And it's a window into you. And I can't, as we're going into the new year, I can't think of a better gift that you could give yourself for opening into 2025.
Yeah, and I guess since we do have a few minutes here, and I do want you to stick around after we sign off LinkedIn Live, we gave you a lot of great information today, the listeners, the watchers. You might think, okay, like I'm going to go do the exercise that Claudia said and touching, fingers to fingers and all that stuff. And you might do that once, maybe twice.
Right.
But one of the benefits of having a coach is that you're invested in it. So there's sunk
That's right.
cost there,
That's right.
right?
That's right.
It's like going to a free networking event. Yeah, you might show up, it's free, but if you paid, you're probably going to show up. So it's the same thing with having a coach. And it's also, I think it translates right into legal services. Somebody could do it themselves when it comes to legal work,
Yeah.
but you might do it wrong. You're probably forgetting something. You might not stick with it. And so outsource that to an attorney. And I understand why people don't want to do that at $500 an hour, because how long is it going to take and all these other things. So a subscription model, bring it back to that. Make it affordable, make it accessible, all of that stuff. So the same thing is true, right, Claudia? Like that's why you hire a coach. Like, what do you have to say about why it matters to not just try to do this yourself, but to work with somebody?
It's so accurate. And what you said is definitely what I see is that you can say, I mean, this is the thing, and I was thinking about this as we go into 2025, how many people make the same resolutions every year? I'm going to lose weight. I'm going to get healthier. I'm going to make choice. I'm going to do something different. How many times have people made the same resolution? There's a reason why it doesn't happen. And I think I say it all the time. It's not because people are stupid. It's not because they're lazy. It's because these patterns have been in place. And what I know happens with coaching is that when you start to shift your mind and you have the accountability, the support, and the tools to make it happen, it actually happens. So you don't have to make the same resolution every year. So coaching, it works and you will see results. And that's why I tell people, like, invest in yourself. You will take that with you wherever you go.
Invest in yourself. Get the gift of coaching from Claudia for
Thank
the
you.
holidays. All right.
Thank
Well,
you.
with that,
Thank you.
again, links again in the show notes. Claudia, stick around. We'll sign off of LinkedIn Live. Thanks for the handful of you that joined us today. And until next time, this was another special episode of Law Subscribed Live.
Thank you.
And that's a wrap. Thanks for tuning in. Make someone's day by sharing this episode with them. The best way to get in touch is to follow and message me on LinkedIn. To get extra content, subscribe to the newsletter at www.lawsubscribe.com, where you can also become a paid subscriber to get episodes and content early. Until next time, this is Matthew Kurbis with Law Subscribed.